Hey guys, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start with our code. So we're going to go inside of our yellow events tab and we're going to use when green flag is clicked. We're going to go into looks and we're going to add a hide. Then we're going to go into control and add a forever. And then we're going to scroll down and we're going to add a create clone of myself. And we're going to choose how long it takes before it creates every clone. And since we want it to snow a little bit, not a little bit, but a lot, I'm going to go ahead and make this a 0.05. But you can always play around with this number if you want it to be a little bit more less of the amount that's going to fall, so you guys can always play around with that. So the less the amount of time you have to wait, the more will come down. The more time it has to wait, the less will come down. So that's something that you guys can play around with. So after this, I'm going to go into my control and I'm going to scroll down towards the bottom and add when I start as a clone. Then I'm going to go into looks. I'm going to add a go to front layer. And then a go backward one layer. And then I'm going to show. Also, for those of you who created more than one particle that you guys want to play around with, after the show, we're also going to pick exactly which costume we want to show up. So I'm going to switch to my costume 1 since I first want it to snow. After this, I'm going to go ahead and go into my motions tab and I'm going to add a set Y2. And we're going to set this to 179. And then I'm going to add a set X2. And I'm going to go into operators and add a pick random. The 1 is going to be negative 240. And my 10 is going to be 240. After that, I'm going to go into control and I'm going to add a repeat until. I'm going to go into operators and use the less than symbol. Inside of the empty bubble, I'll go inside the blue motions tab and scroll towards the bottom and use the blue Y position bubble on the empty bubble. And the 50 I'm going to change to negative 178. Okay. Once I've done that, still inside the motions tab, I'm going to add a change Y by. I'm going to change this to negative 5. And underneath everything, I'm going to go into control and add a delete this clone. So what it's doing is it's telling us that it's going to start from the very top because we set the Y to 179 and pick random for our X is going to pick a random spot at the very top. And then it's going to continue falling until it reaches the very bottom. And then once it does that, it's going to stop moving it and it's just going to delete the clone. So to make sure that you guys can swap out to a different one, there are a couple different options that you guys can use, but the main one that I'm going to show you for today is going to be clicking on the control tab and then using when I start as a clone. Then I'm going to add a forever and then an if, and we can go into our operator and use our greater than. So if our score, so we're going to go into our variable and use our score bubble, and we can pick how much you want it to be. So maybe after 30 or more. So if our player reaches a score of 30 or more, then we're going to go ahead and go into looks, and then we're going to switch costume to costume 2. So this will switch it to the new one. And if you guys have more than one, then what you guys can go ahead and do is you can go ahead and duplicate this if, and now say, now if my score is more than 60, now I'm going to switch to a new costume. And then you can either play between the ones that you have, or if you have more, then you can go ahead and pick on the new one. But once you're done, other things you guys can play around with is this change Y by will tell you how fast or how slow it will move. And this weight will tell you how much will come down as you're playing the game. So you guys can go ahead and play around with those numbers as well. And once you're done, we're going to move on to the next step, which is going to be adding the info.